Welcome back everyone. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy A12 and see how this specific phone holds up in 2022. Now personally, I actually do love the Samsung Galaxy A lineup. I think they are beautiful devices that Samsung has made. I don't necessarily think they're perfect, but honestly, they have a lot of capability within them, and anytime Samsung makes a brand new A series of their devices, I'm really happy with these type of phones, and personally, I would probably recommend you to pick them up if you're on a budget. However, I've always said this, the flagship of those years are always some of the best phones you can buy, but also the flagships of the year before may end up being better options as well. We aren't really too sure what the future of the A lineup holds in terms of software updates and everything, but I will tell you, the Samsung Galaxy A12 came out in 2020, the Galaxy S10 came out in 2019, and that may be a better option for some people, to be honest. So I will leave some phones linked in the description. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the Galaxy A12, it's a really big phone, and it comes with a lot of different features built in for the most part. So we do have a 6.5-inch PLS LCD panel at the front of it. It's a 720p panel, and this is definitely not the best looking panel of all time, and from a manufacturer like Samsung, who makes some of the best OLED displays I've ever seen, it's always very interesting to me to see Samsung make anything other than an OLED panel, to be honest. Even their TVs, probably their fridges have OLED panels too. Like, they make the best OLED panels, I think, and that's why Apple also sources them from this manufacturer. Currently, as of right now though, I will say this panel itself is not ugly, but definitely for its age and its price tag, now almost 2 years old, I feel like Samsung could have done better, but again, it's supposed to be a budget phone, so I totally understand where they're coming from in this specific case. Now at the bottom, we do have our charging port, which is always nice to see, and we do have a microSD card slot on this machine as well. So again, I think more than anything, having those type of accessories on this type of phone is amazing, and I love seeing phones like this get those type of ports. I think they're awesome. Now on the back, we do have a complete plastic bag for the most part. It's also a plastic frame covering this phone, so this is not supposed to be like, again, the most premium option, but a very interesting thing that some people may have forgotten is that Samsung put a plastic bag on their flagship, the Galaxy S12, the Galaxy S21, if you guys remember that. And most people forget about that because now the S22 does not have a plastic back, but this phone had it. Not to say, the S22 or S21 was a cheap phone, but it's still very interesting to me that a developer like Samsung on their flagship put a plastic back, and on their cheapest phone put a plastic back as well. So in terms of the outside, I will definitely tell you, it's not going to wow anybody. This is definitely not a phone you want to pick up if you're trying to get the most premium thing. And I don't even think this is the best bang for the dollar that you can get for this type of price tag. I feel like if you go in the used market, a report that just came out, the S22 has depreciated 3 times as much as the iPhone 13. So you can definitely find a lot of Samsung phones in the used market for much cheaper than what they retailed for. So in terms of the outside, that kind of covers it up there. Now in terms of the camera setup, this has always been a very interesting thing that Samsung does. They kind of put a lot of cameras on their phones, sometimes the budget ones, that don't really do too much. In this specific case, with the Galaxy A12, we have a 48 megapixel wide-angle lens, we have a 5 megapixel ultra-wide sensor, 2 megapixel macro lens, then a 2 megapixel depth lens, and we also have an 8 megapixel front-facing camera. Now, a big thing to keep in mind with this type of phone is that the camera itself, the megapixel count doesn't mean everything, right? So when you see 48 megapixel, you probably think that's so much better than an iPhone, 13 that has 12 megapixels. But again, not quite the case. In this specific example, these cameras, honestly, for the price tag, it's not a horrible camera, but I feel like Samsung, again, could have done a little bit better. I think in this specific situation, they were mostly trying to just put in as many cameras as possible because they probably knew a lot of people would end up looking at these cameras, see 4 cameras, and probably pick it up. But I will say having that ultra-wide sensor is always a nice thing to have. Personally, though, I always prefer having an ultra-wide sensor that probably has more megapixel count than my main lens, this case a wide-angle lens, just because you're getting much more into the photo. But still, I would much rather have a 5 megapixel ultra-wide sensor than not having an ultra-wide sensor at all. So I think that's a really cool thing that that Samsung did at the time. Now, these phones, like I mentioned before, have a ton of features built in. That's just something that a lot of these phone developers have done, and I think Samsung does it the best. I think they put in a ton of features at one time into their cameras, and because it's software based, you can pretty much use those specific features on a ton of different devices all over the place. So personally, I love that. I will say for certain devices out there, like if you're trying to go ahead and, load up Snapchat or different things like that, you're really not going to be getting the best type of experience. But I, for one, I'm happy that they went down this route. And I do know the successors of these devices have been a lot better than this one. So in terms of the camera, that covers it up there. In terms of software, this device started off with Android 10. It did get Android 11. I possibly think that it may get Android 13. Again, I don't know for a fact. But I will say, if Samsung ends up supporting these phones for a longer period of time than what they are now, that is going to be a big win. Samsung has been on the move of actually improving the software longevity of a lot of different devices out there, and I've been a humongous fan of that. I think on their Galaxy Tabs as well. So when you have something like the Samsung Galaxy S10 that's gotten an extra year of software support, you have the S20, S21, S22, these phones are going to be lasting much longer than what we initially thought. And even with the Galaxy S22, there's a chance it may end up getting, software updates we may have not even thought of. In this specific case, it may end up being the same thing as well with the A12. Maybe Samsung will increase it, I doubt it, but it's something to consider. So in terms of software, that kind of covers it up there. Now in terms of performance, this device internally has that MediaTek Hello P35 chipset. I've never even heard of that before, with an octa-core chipset, and there were a few different models of this thing. So here, this range: 2GB of RAM on the base models, 4GB of RAM on some mid-tier model, 3GB of RAM on some other mid-tier models, and then 6GB of RAM on the top-tier model. So I don't know why there were so many different variations of this thing. Probably to tackle every other RAM, offering that other developers had. But it's very interesting they chose these type of increments. Why did they stop at 6? Well, probably because the Galaxy S20 at the time had 8GB of RAM, and they probably didn't want to cannibalize those sales. They also had the A52, the A51, the A71, so many other, devices out there too. But personally, when I look at the performance of this phone, I don't think this is a bad performing phone. I don't think it's the best performing phone, but it's all relative to the price tag. Because this phone wasn't trying to be $1,000 flagship or even like a $300 flagship, this thing was competing at a very, very cheap price tag when it first came out. And I think that's really, really cool to see. Seeing a developer like Samsung make these really budget phones, and to make them actually not bad, really makes me excited for the future of devices. Now, when I look at something like the Galaxy A12, yeah, this thing isn't really like the craziest, best performing thing of all time anymore. But this honestly makes me really happy for the future of the A series. With this device, we already know what kind of happened with this one. But in the future, when we kind of look at the Galaxy A19 or something that happens, I would be super happy to see how great of a job Samsung actually does with those devices, because they've been doing a very good job with these phones. So in my opinion, yeah, the performance isn't really that great, to be honest, compared to the other phones. It's supposed to be a cheap budget offering, and I'm actually kind of happy about it, to be honest. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there for the most part. In terms of battery life, this is the craziest one. This phone has a 5,000 mAh battery inside of it. It does not have wireless charging or anything like that, but that is a crazy amount. That's the biggest, battery size I've seen in some of these phones. So to have that big of a battery size on this type of device, like I mentioned before, is super awesome. And I'm so happy Samsung did it with this device. And to be honest, and to kind of, sum up this whole entire video, I kind of think that this phone, obviously, it really isn't worth it that much anymore. If you have the option to kind of purchase another type of device, then I would 100% recommend going down that road. If you have the option of buying a Galaxy S10 or a Galaxy S20, I would highly recommend going for it. That honestly makes the most amount of sense to me, and it really doesn't make a crazy amount of sense to buy something like this anymore. But I will tell you, for something like the Galaxy, A12 to be this decent in 2022 is actually pretty insane to me. Like I mentioned, I wouldn't recommend buying it anymore for the most part, but I'm actually really happy that Samsung makes these A series of devices, and that's kind of how I would sum it up, to be honest. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.